In order to promote and popularize the cultivation of buckwheat, the Farmers Commission, we had organized the Buckwheat Global Showcase on the 9th and 10th of September 2022. So the showcase was intended to actually create awareness amongst consumers as well as also buyers and entrepreneurs about the potential of buckwheat for value addition, then the potential of the export market, as well as the potential for farmers to actually expand the area. More importantly, we saw a very substantial presence of the Japanese, especially the Minister for Economic and Development from the Embassy of Japan. She and her team came here, spent 2 days. We also had one of Japan's biggest buckwheat grower who came in here to actually look at ways on how to to do a tie-up actually between Meghalaya and Japan for import of buckwheat. That was a time when we realized the need for post-harvest processing, the need for value addition, when we saw and when people saw the tremendous diversity of products that could be made from buckwheat. A lot of activities, especially the cooking challenges. In fact, the competitors who participated in the cooking challenge, some of them came up with some very unique products, and which was a very big surprise even for the national chefs, the judges, who had, of course, for many of them it was a first time experience with buckwheat, but even then they were very surprised how our young people were able to create such innovative recipes. I would say that the showcase sort of sparked the imagination of a lot of people. In fact, winemakers who were there on that day then started experimenting with making buckwheat wine. So we got around 4,000 plus footfalls, and majority of the footfalls were farmers from all over the state. They came, I think, around 1,000 plus, almost 2,000 farmers from across the state attended, along with entrepreneurs, officials, and people from Shillong. It was because we realized the importance of post-harvest processing. Then from the commission, we resolved to send a team of 4 officers to Japan to actually go there and have a look at what the Japanese are doing on the post-harvest and processing of buckwheat, and also to see the market for buckwheat in Japan. When the team came back from Japan, they had identified the small-scale machinery which the Japanese had developed for processing of buckwheat, because for the last 2 years we had been experimenting and doing a lot of pilots with a lot of companies to develop a viable or a good buckwheat dehuller. And though some have succeeded, but not to the extent that we expected, and not to the kind of perfection, I would say, the finesse that the Japanese have achieved. The Japanese do have the technology, so we are talking to the Japanese now on probably sourcing or technology transfer for this post-harvest processing of buckwheat. Hopefully this year something should come through. The potential for post-harvest processing is tremendous, and it was only, in fact, recently, even this year, I came across in India itself. In India, in Mumbai, I came across restaurants that have started specializing in buckwheat dishes, in using buckwheat as one of the main ingredients. And apparently, they were getting very good traction. This was driven probably by the consumer awareness about, being more conscious about their health. Post-COVID, they were looking at gluten-free alternatives for buckwheat, and that's why I think even the Indian market is slowly beginning to pick up on the byproducts and value-added products of buckwheat, which ultimately is good for our farmers. Based on the performance of the buckwheat during the last year's month of March, the March planting season, which was quite good in the sense that we could see the potential of buckwheat, especially in the more temperate areas of the state. We had also thought of expanding the cultivation to the warmer areas of the state. And then of course after the post the visit to Japan, then we started expanding, and that's where a lot of during the showcase we saw a lot of attendance from the Garo Hills farmers, and the Garo Hills farmers had expressed a great interest to start the buckwheat cultivation, and for that reason we had taken up buckwheat in all the 5 districts of Garo Hills. And I'm happy to say that especially in the West Garo Hills and in North Garo Hills, the cultivation has been very successful.
Ya buckwheat ke ani ko dengtang mancha jedakode songonoko gamegi jagparangna dakchakani onggen aro bisongni janggi thangani ko jedakode raduna matgen yarangni bidingo daude Meghalaya Farmers Commission ni geta ya buckwheat ke ani rangko ba Garo Hillsona bisong ya gepatna geta bisong rake kham khainga Shillongo Khasi Hills rangode ya ko khangan Garo Hillsnas khangan ge manaha ndiba ya Garo Hillsode hajal gni kolgret gni onisa ya ko training rang otne betul rangko Farmers Commission ni geta free otnate bisong dakchakenga aro yarangni kosako dao atmani geta chingaba wan farmers rangko ba gamegi jagparangko buckwheat ge china didi roroe bisongna training rangko otnata aro Meghalaya Farmers Commission baksa nangdeme chinga training rangko otnata ya training rangko chinga chingni atma office training hall donga unona chinga dengtang block ni gamegi jagparangko okamatemeng bisongna ya buckwheat ni gemen agan thalate onenba aro ya buckwheat ko bisongge genchmong ode ya buckwheat geemeng mangemen becerangko Meghalaya Farmers Commission ni getan bisongan brave aigen yarangko agane bisongko chinga didie wan bisongna yan namgepa income bang gen
angni aba chinga de yan digyonga atmani mandirang angko training pas kepoka machinga ndegemena angaya training ko matne angna Farmers Commission din pri becilko nata angaya ko becilko matne angaya ko gia anga buckwheat ko dal bersih ha aba chinga yan January jaw anga aba chinga yan daw February ongjok ya biba longjok anga dakchakani rangko atmani mandirangni panga dakchakani rangko matnaha maina angna becilhan ongai jan dige basago bade angko training na basago bade batsaba yangna dakchaka bisong
Meghalaya Farmers Commission ni kita chingna becilrangko naha aro atma ni kita chingna ya priokni chingna dakchakani training rangko na aro priokni training rangko naha aro giani somai rangko chingna bisongya atma ni kita lain rangko mede kita hari nanga gina nanga chiruna nanga ya mukko chingna bai bisong training naha anga ya buckwheat gina ta ni kali dango dongja ndiba ya anga thang ya arangko de nimung gi aha ya ha ko anga de num bisong mai de ki dakna nanga nangja yarang mukko bisong bai mung idea nangna
ya buckwheat ko anga gina kata atmani kita training rangko matna ya training ko matningon anga banga training rangko matnemna lain laki gina kata pizza cergerke gina kata training ko matna ya ko anga lain laki gimuna gi nion banga namani rangko naka hari ko anga namat nagata talat nagata chirangko agata ci pangping dal bachi hoten ba ya buckwheat ko namat nagta mana
anga ya buckwheat ko angni gena baching ni de keji bunga rangko angno na aro betlang dongpenga aro mukangchi aro je biap tongo barangwa giang kugen mukangchi anga ina batte dal batte manang ode gigen gabang ne songani donga.
From the commission, we had offered farmers that whatever they produce, we would buy. We would buy all the seeds at 50 rupees a kilo. But surprisingly, nobody wanted to sell. And when we started inquiring, we found that farmers were actually selling to each other. In fact, farmers had found their own market. They were getting a much better price than even what we were offering. KVK, they had informed us that the natural spread that between farmer to farmer was as high as 24%. Which is very good actually. Which means that farmers know that this is a good crop for them, know that this is a profitable crop. Otherwise, why would they, go out and buy seeds from fellow farmers? They're very interested. The feedback I'm getting is that there's not enough seed to go around. And this is perhaps a major constraint that we will need to pay more attention to, because unless we have the seed, the farmers' aspirations, we cannot meet them. So all in all, I would say that the experiment that we tried in the warmer areas of the state like Reboy and the Garo Hills has been successful, and in fact this time we had close to 184 acres of cultivation, around 320 or 325 farmers actually in this March season, which is a good progress as compared to when we started with 4 acres. Buckwheat is one of the best bee forage crops. Apparently, recent research has shown that buckwheat honey has 1.5 times more antioxidant power than Manuka honey, which, if properly, I think, marketed and known to people, could probably place buckwheat honey in more or less the same market bracket, or even more, a higher market bracket than even Manuka honey. It's still early days, but this is something that's very promising, and that's the reason why we had recently, in fact in the month of I think that was November, we had initiated a program of training of buckwheat farmers in apiculture on how to rear bees, and it has been well received. We started first off in Smith and in Mausiat Khanam village, and then we expanded recently to Nangba village in the Jaintia Hills, and we plan to to conduct these trainings and encourage beekeeping activities in every buckwheat field, because of 2 things. One is that it adds to the diversity of the flora, because bees are pollinators. Number 2 is it adds to the productivity of buckwheat as well as productivity of other flowers, other fruits, other plants, and most importantly, it is also an additional source of revenue for the farmers. And if you look, if you scan the market nowadays, buckwheat honey is not available in India. Nobody is selling it. There's nobody producing it. So probably we will be the first state to actually produce buckwheat honey. And we expect that buckwheat honey, in fact, the indications we're getting from the market is that buckwheat honey can fetch anything from 3,000 to about 6,000 rupees a kilo, and at farmers level maybe it can go up from 500 to 800 rupees a kilo, which is quite substantial. And I would say in a period of just barely 2 months, that kind of income can be generated.
Nga lasang beringap nandu senam arcakat pra bat adu mentah nilai da kecing wan cukunika Farmer Commission bat ka ki is kesir ka warak training macam ba nga acing metoy sya ya kani kam ringap bat ha kecing ringap tengah ngai syam ba long kalat cing kamai kan namar bangi ngi yo cing metoy sibun na kani kam ringap bat yo iru ba kalong ka ba kentiu sya kam ringap bat na lo bangi la ai training susu ni nama ngiyok ke training ngisam ba ngila nang susu kumno ban penyar susu ya kam ringap ya kabangala ri barok sekata ngisam ba kini ke training ru ke aji kai gibubuan ha ka rukom kumno ban pia kayau bat ban lat kemi bat kumno ban story ka ni ka brut sambar ban paji kini sopar bat ngasam ru kani ka cing ai training cuki kalong ka ngasam ba kalong ka bai sesok bat ngakermen ba na kecing ai training cuki nga kisnem ki banwan salak ban penyar susu ha kam ringap kecing thung kecing dai uni ungap bat kani ka bat uni cing thung u buckwheat ngisam ba uni ungap u boy ba ni ki sentiu caran bat ngisam ba kani ka ungap ru ka kham yong ban ya kue pat ngap bat ngi sngewam ta ba ka ngap charan kalong ka ba kodor bat kalong ka baram dor ban ye compare bat kue pat ki ngap ki ba ki yo chane
ba phingsan I thong hang ne une buckwheat une ki ong jarai no ki khasi te iri ki sindanga bang ne bat hagi opor I thong ne buckwheat te ketum kajing ke bangi ya jingtip balada kilap tes kanika ka umngap bat kilap ba keran ko banyo pho persen ai ka jong Buckwheat hapo jong ka don hapo jong ka umngap ka bon ka dor ka lang ka ba ha tada ka umngap normal honey kan poi san spa sekilo kemut na ka umngap jong Buckwheat kan poi 2,000 sekilo te kalau kajian nam bakhau nam ta iba kum inong rep hakaba idon ya kanika jaka hakaba irep hakaju opor ibu ki sendungap hakaju opor irep ini Buckwheat bat nge iba kidan kingap ki baboy nu sentiu hangne hanu Buckwheat hanu jaran te nginget ba kine ki umngap hi ke badan hangne ha pok ke senduk ro kide na uneu Buckwheat bat kidan ro ki ba let's say ki ba ki yo negwi bagi ja sentiu
community interest group ni kita senga bija jelani nang kopa senga ya biapo dona hachum jeda ko gens mode ya bija ya Buckwheat ko sirani chi bechir ani chi namgapa bechirang ko ya Buckwheat ko demani chi bechirang ko makna kata amma aru nambata aru damuknya ya Buckwheat ko Buckwheat ko je bija rangan madem hachum bechira hachum bo bechi ko dam rakpata o phalna kata makna kan Buckwheat hani ni menga senga ya bija bakko serang kopa ya biapo ya je biapo senga Buckwheat ki achum yonon senga bija bok serang kopa senga dona ha Buckwheat hani ko makna muksonge
ya daun kengpa angni mkhang kengpa ya Buckwheat ko atmani aro farmers committee kita cengna ya Buckwheat betul ko naha aro isong atmani kita cengna ya Buckwheat ko gina kita training rang ko nani gemen cengna ya rang ko gia ha aro bisongan badak mai dakki gina nanga ya rang ko cengna skio naha wamang cengni gia ni rang ko nirok na kita re baimna niroka aro mai dakki gina nanga warang ko cengna skia cenga wamangni skia kita wamangni training na kita cenga ya rang ko gia ha cenga ya rang ko gia mangmang san aija cenga ya ko gi manuba cenga chirang ko ruwa dimna chirang ko ruengon cenga ya dau yen angni mkhangon kengpa bitirang ko matninga han dimna bitirang ko matmanuba wamang cenga training mattengo farmers committee ni kita kamis ni kita wamang betul ko brief gen nani gemen cenga khadongi gia ha aro cenga ya betulang ko wamang nan palba palgen aro mkhang chiba cenga cengni janggi thangna chol ni cenga kusiung gia aro ahan digimna mkhang chiba cenga yana batte bang batte gi ang khugen ya cenga training neng gepa atma aro farmers kamis ko cenga mthela aro kusiung wamang ni nani na wamang ko mthela
farmer commission ni kita aro atma department ni kita senga ya Buckwheat rangko gina kita senga bechirang ko na hachum aro atma ni kita senga ya training rangko Buckwheat ko mai take gina nanga senga training rangko mana hachum senga bisuni training unani kita senga Buckwheat rangko gina kita chol aro chol ko makna ha wenaba dengta macha senga atma department ko ba senga metela senga bisuni training unani kita senga gi hachum aro abachinge gi anio senga ya chirangko runa kita mana hachum jin sumai cenga chirang ko runa manjaha uni betu cenga chi ratnangani bidungo cenga chirang ko runa kata manjaha ru chirang tepani bidungo cenga ya Buckwheat ko talat na kata selat na kata manjaha ndiba cenga ya tao dongkhwing gepa Buckwheat ko cenga mkhangchi thari tapang hugen aro ma depete cenga choton kha uken nimbana cenga khangkari khainga aro namta patna kata mangen aro ya betrang ko farmers commission ni kita bod atma department ni kita betul ko bara na nimbana bisong khura chakira aha cenga mkhangchi ya betrang ko ba farmers commission na cenga phalna mangen nimbana cenga khadong suenga aro mangen ni cenga khadonga
We plan to do a couple of things. One is bring in the post-harvest processing. We're also seeing that the Indian market is actually a developing market, is growing. There are actually people who are now venturing into very specific buckwheat products and cuisines. In fact, we have buyers who have come through I-teams who now are looking for anything between 100 metric tons of buckwheat, every month. And 200 metric tons of hulls of shells. We've had a lot of offers for collaboration, especially from the corporates. But yes, we are not here at that stage, but hopefully I think in the next couple of years we should be able to tie up these what do you call it, collaborations. Recently we had a review of the Buckwheat initiative, and we are seeing that even the department also now, we are encouraging the department to develop a specific scheme for buckwheat for farmers. And hopefully we hope that this year this will come through. And if it does come through, it'll be a very big, it'll be a very big step forward, because then the farmers would have access to a much wider support system. NABARD in fact started funding and financing buckwheat farmers, and we've started from Jaintia Hills. And the fact that NABARD is coming in and we are seeing a lot of interest and traction from corporate sector, we're seeing a lot of interest even from the government. I think it's good for the Buckwheat initiative.